Today we are venturing back into the world of speed painting, except this time we are going to be trying to paint a white scar in under 40 minutes. Now, painting white can be one of the hardest things to do in miniature painting, but have no worries because this is actually a foolproof way of getting the cleanest whites you can get. And to get the best white scar colours, we're going to be using 2 primer paints today, but there's one important thing we need to do, and that is wash them. We're going to heat them up with some warm water, and this will allow the paint to move freely within the can. I do this for about 30 seconds to a minute, until when I can shake it no longer feels cold. And the next step is heading outside to prime our miniature, and to start we are going to be using Army Painted Grey, but I'd probably recommend Citadel's Grey Sear, because it's generally a little bit of a better product. And whenever we're priming, we do want to be holding onto the trigger. We want to be doing short, quick bursts, making sure to go in a zigzag pattern, never hitting the same spot more than once. And the next paint we're going to be using is White Scar, the paint itself, the best white primer there is around. And to get one of the coolest gradients you're ever going to see, we're going to be spraying exactly from above. But make sure to do a test spray just before, just in case any paint sprays out. And with these lighter colour primers, you can have to shake basically after every 10 little sprays, about every 5 to 10 seconds. Shaking it consistently will make the paint thinner, and it will run smoother and you'll get such a nice finish. And after leaving it to dry for about 5 to 10 minutes, it's time to grab our first colour of the day, Black Legion Contrast Paint by Games Workshop itself. Now, this is the hardest and one of the most important parts of painting a white scar, as we're going to try our hardest not to get any black paint onto the white, but don't worry too much if you do, because there is an easy way we can fix this later on. And for this we're going to be wanting to paint all of the under armour of the Space Marine. This is behind his knees, behind his elbows, basically in between every joint you can see, even his neck. And the reason why Black Legion is quite possibly one of the best paints of all time is because it has such a nice deep rich black, and you only need 1 coat of it and you don't need to thin it, which is a big bonus for me. Now, the White Scar's colour scheme is very monochromatic. It's basically black and white with a bit of red thrown in there. So for this we're going to be painting Hilda's weaponry in black. And once that's done, it's time to head over to my favourite silver, Black Metal by Scale 75. But don't worry, Lead Belcher by Games Workshop works just the same. With this paint, thinning it very slightly because it's already quite a thin paint, we're going to paint the blades of the chainsaw, the rest of the bolter that's white, this tiny cable on his helmet, and finally all of the exhaust fans on the back of his backpack. And if you spill over to any of the white parts on the model, don't worry because we can always paint the rims of all these exhaust fans in silver as well. So after painting those weird little things on his back, it's time to paint the leather of the Marine, and for this we're going to be using Rhinox Hide, one of the best browns there is out there. So after thinning it slightly, we're going to be painting the belt. Now this is one of the hard things you have to do, as you really have to get in deep in the Marine, which leads us on to our next colour, Matte Red by AK Interactive. Now I'm an idiot who often forgets to press record. We're going to be base coating our Aquila in this matte red. And as you can see, I have already made mistakes all over the model, so don't feel bad if you have too. This is the joy of speed painting. We're trying to go as quick as we can. And to make it look better, we're going to start highlighting in Blood Red by AK Interactive. And with this, I'm just painting the top 2 lines of the Aquila, as well as the skull. Then I'm going to start removing some of the paint, leaving just a little bit left on the brush, which then we're going to do downstrokes on the Marine, which will just coat the edges of the Aquila, leaving this really nice effect, which requires little to no work. This is basically a small form of dry brushing, but on a tiny scale. This is one of my favourite techniques that really does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to speed painting. And when it comes to the eyes, this is one of the more trickier parts that mainly comes with time. The more you paint, the easier it'll get, but basically we're just going to dip our brush into his eye socket. And while we have our red paint, let's paint the inside of the chainsaw guard before using some Rune Lord brass to paint the rest of the chainsaw as some nice accent colours. And it's about that time, it's time to clean up, which we'll be using Ulthuan Grey as our main paint, the air version, because it is far superior as it is already thinned. And for this we're going to be mixing it with our Black Legion. This is going to be the biggest Tron error segment, as we're going to try and match the grey to the armour. It also could be worth just doing this in a few different spots, and as we head back to our model we can see if it's too bright or too dark. But we can always increase the intensity by adding more of that light grey to the mix. And right now I'm just quickly going over all of the black spots I left on the miniature, as well as anywhere I got that red. This is one of the unfortunate times where the less you mess up, the quicker it is. But once you get the hang of it, and if you're doing this over the span of an army, it'll be pretty quick. Unfortunately, under the Aquila, I pretty much had to repaint the whole of the chest, starting with a dark grey and slowly highlighting up to a white. And while I was here, I thought that belt was looking pretty bare. I think some Runelord brass will make it populous a bit more and add some more contrast to this Marine. I also grabbed some of the dark greys we mixed up and started slightly highlighting the bolter in what I would call a sketch-like pattern, basically with no purpose, just slightly dabbing my brush against the black and hoping for a nice cool look. After our small edge highlighting was done, it's time to head over some transfers. Now, I don't actually own any White Scars transfers, so some close call to combat will do for now. All I've done is stuck this in some water for about a minute and then plopped it on his shoulder. To resemble his chapter mark, the brightest one I have is a campaign badge, so that'll do as well. One really interesting part about Space Marine lore is each squad and each company has their own markings. I wanted to jazz this Marine up a bit by adding a squad marking. For this, I went for squad number 20. What started looking pretty good turned out pretty bad quick. I wasted a lot of time on this, so I ended up just doing a half circle of red, but I think it looks pretty good. And if you wanted a really cool basic Marine, you'll be done here in under half an hour. But to add some shadows, we're going to cover this in a black enamel wash. Unfortunately, mine had actually pretty much gone off, which is going to leave some weird marks on our Marine. I didn't know this at the time, and like an idiot, I also didn't press record. But this is literally the easiest thing you can ever do. Basically, you're going to coat this whole Marine with an expendable paintbrush, one you don't really care about. And then we're going to remove this very wash, leaving it just in the recesses. And for this, we're going to need some mineral spirits. In this case, I choose Winsor & Newton's Sansador. And using a small cotton wool bud or a paintbrush, basically you want something that's really soft, that won't wipe away or brush off any paint you've painted. A lot of people will say you need to varnish your miniatures. This is a really time-consuming process, and depending on the paints you use, you kind of don't really have to. As long as you're soft and delicate when wiping away the excess enamel wash, you'll most likely be fine. But that's why it's okay just to test it on one Marine before you do it on a whole army. And I do highly recommend wearing a mask while doing this, as the fumes from both the paint and the mineral spirits are slightly irritating. At least they irritate me quite a lot. So let's get this White Scar based. I made this base in another video that will be featured somewhere else, but having a dark base will add extra contrast to your unit. And I'm going to go over anywhere where the enamel wash didn't settle properly, leaving these odd streak marks, and I'm just going to go over with pure Ulthuan grey, adding a nice highlight over the shoulder pads and any edges that need a nice shine. Adding these last finishing highlights is what's going to make your model really pop on the battlefield, and this was all done in under 40 minutes, which is a great time. And for a battle-ready Marine, I think he looks pretty good. And I think I might be able to do him even quicker. Let me know what you think, and what Space Marine chapter would you like me to cover in the future, or any Warhammer miniature really. I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See ya.